I don't like point-and-click adventures. That is why I decided to make my own. Well, if I just didn't like point-and-click adventures, I would have no problem here. I don't like many genres, like first-person shooters or clicker games, for example. That's not a problem, I just don't really play them, and I probably will never make a game in this genre. But my problem with point-and-click adventures is that I really want to like them. Point-and-click adventures have a lot of elements my favorite games have, and that's why I always get persuaded to just buy them and try them out again. For example, most of my favorite games of all time have story elements in them. Some more than others, but the story is a very interesting part of the game to me, and I think games are a really interesting medium to tell your stories. Point-and-click adventures do have stories, very good ones actually, with amazing humor and great voice acting. And I want to experience these stories. And on the other side, I really like a good puzzle. I like to solve riddles, I like escape games, or games like Is This Taken? So why don't I like point-and-click adventures? They have a lot of mechanics I really do like. So I think first I have to define how I see the genre. The main element of point-and-click adventures is the story. We mainly follow one character, and to progress in the story, the player has to collect items and use them correctly in the world. This is the puzzle part I was talking about. Because collecting and using these items is more or less obvious. You can often also combine these items and create new ones you can use also. I also associate some kind of humor with this genre. Most of the stories aren't that deep or dark, and it's mostly quite lighthearted. For the mechanics, the games are easy to play, like literally just pointing and clicking. Some do have a walking mechanic, but I think most of them don't even have that. That makes the game inherently a bit slower and relaxed. Dare I say simple. Not in a bad way, I love cozy games, so it would fit right in there. So where exactly is the problem now? I don't have a problem with any of these elements. I like a story, I like the puzzle, I do like humor, and the mechanics are also something I like. So I decided to purchase another game and give it another try. For research purpose, of course. When playing it, I came to the point I always come to. I have to solve the current problem in a very specific and kinda absurd way, even though I have a perfectly good alternative in mind. For example, the player is behind a window. Outside the window is a letter. The letter is the item we need to progress in the story. As the player, you can open the window, and it looks like you could just reach for the letter. But no, that doesn't work. So, okay, that's fine. We're here for solving puzzles, right? Okay, let's see what I have in my inventory. For example, I have 3 bed sheets. I could knot them together and secure the character so it can reach out of the window without falling. But that doesn't work. The game just gives me feedback, no, that doesn't work. Why should it work? Okay, now I have a clothes hanger, let's try this. I could just bend it and reach for the letter and maybe get it that way. Nope, that also doesn't work. And the game just gives me the feedback again, no, doesn't work. Not why it doesn't work, just doesn't work. The game just doesn't let me do that. And I think that's very frustrating when you don't even get a why or I don't know, just an explanation why it doesn't work. It just always says nope, even though in the real world these options could probably work just fine. So what is my option then in the game? I have to walk around the whole level and point and click at every little detail to find something that works. And I think that's not very fun. At that point I mostly lose my excitement for the game, and most of the time I just quit it. Which is actually pretty sad because I want to know how this story progresses. And I wonder, am I the only one that gets annoyed about this? I guess it's kinda part of the game to find the one solution the developer intended. how absurd it may be. And sometimes I see that there is a humor in that as well. But then I thought about how I could solve my problem. The first one is easy. Simply have different solutions to one problem and explain why the problem doesn't work. So for example, you have to save a kitty from the tree. Maybe you can lure it down with a fish, or find a ladder, or ask for help from a friendly firefighter. All of them would work, and you would save the cat. And if you need the fish, for example, for a different puzzle later in the game, well, then you have to find something else to solve that one. There only needs to be enough options. And if you use an item that doesn't work, I want feedback, or maybe like a D&D explanation what will happen. For example, you try to use a book to lure down the cat, and then maybe the game is mocking you like, the cat doesn't read. It's not interested in your book, or something like that. So it feels like it's intended. And if you think that's a perfectly good action to have a book thrown at a cat, the game still says how you use it and that it's not the right way, not just no. And I think it would make it more purposeful. If you need a lot of options, that brings me to the next problem, because I don't like just pointing and clicking at everything in the scene in the hopes to find a new item. I mean, that's the name of the genre, okay, but is it really fun to anyone? So I would love to have a lot of items in my inventory that I could just use all the time, and I ask myself, how could I do it? I mean, it's not really normal to run around with basically everything, so I thought I could implement it in the story. For example, you're an illustrator and you are somehow magically drawn into your own children's book you are currently working on, but you still have your pen. Because of that, you can draw your items yourself and use them in the world. Of course, you can also find key items in the world, like personal belongings of the characters and stuff like that. That would enable the player to have a big variety of items and options to use in the game. And I also am thinking about another mechanic that doesn't quite solve any problem with the genre, but a problem I do have. And that problem is I like playing games. And I really like my girlfriend, and she also likes playing games. And we really like playing games together. But we like co-op games that we can just, like couch co-op games that we play together on the couch. And I think there is just not enough of them. And I thought to myself, why not make a point-and-click adventure into a good co-op game? I think the drawing mechanic especially could have a lot of interesting features for two people, but I can't decide on this one. I really need your help. Would you be interested in such a game? And do you think it would benefit from being a co-op game? So please leave me a comment. I would be very interested to hear opinions on that. Next step for me in this progress would be to build a very basic prototype to validate my ideas, and also see if I can even make it work from a technical side of it. Because introducing options always opens up a lot of work. But more about that in the next video. If you liked this video, or if you are interested in the process, follow along to watch me make a point-and-click adventure that I actually like. Thank you for watching.